Senator, nice to speak to you, sir.
Nice to see you, Greta.
Senator, am I correct in saying that about 92% of the world's semiconductors are manufactured in Taiwan?
Not 92% of all the semiconductors, but what's called the cutting edge semiconductors. They are manufactured in Taiwan, mostly by a company named TSMC that is actually making an investment to build a semiconductor facility in Arizona, which is good news. But if you step back and look at not only what's happening in Taiwan with its vulnerabilities, but if you look over the last 20 years, America used to make about a third of all the semiconductors in the world. We're down to roughly 12%. China itself, not Taiwan, but China itself, PRC, made low single digits. It's rapidly approaching a third of the semiconductors. So this is both a jobs, innovation, and national security challenge.
What happened? Why did we fall behind? We're making so many more in the early 90s. Why not now? And I know you have a bill that you shepherded through last summer.
Bipartisan legislation that would say this is crazy to be dependent on something that's essential for anything that we use that has an on and off switch. One of the reasons why we have shortages of cars is not because Detroit and American can't make those cars, but we don't have semiconductor chips. When we think about cell phones or refrigerators, and as we move towards more technology, there's more need for chips. The reason why that we aren't making as many, it was cheaper to build them in China. And I think the world, not just America, but the rest of the world is waking up to that fact. And over the last year plus, we've seen European countries step up and try to make greater investments. South Korea, Japan, our allies in Asia. But this is something we have to get a bill to the president that's broadly bipartisan that would say we'll invest up to $52 billion of American investment in both building at least 10 new semiconductor manufacturing plants, they call them fabs, and to continue to do the research to make sure that we have the technological edge.
Here's the problem I have, though. You have your bipartisan bill, and you and I have spoken about it before, passed last summer. The House finally took up theirs in February. Well, now it's in conference where you try to reconcile the two bills. But we've lost a whole year.
Greta, you're 100% right. As a matter of fact, if you want to make, this almost makes me cry, is that the Europeans took the model that we passed in the Senate, and they were able to move quicker through all their bureaucracy. And now Intel, a great American company that's announced a facility in Ohio, is going to build a much bigger facility in Germany because the Germans are already able to deliver $8 billion in subsidy. Now, that's crazy the House took so long, and it's also crazy that we have to come up with a bill now that's not got a whole wish list of things outside of this critical national security issue, jobs issue, and making sure that we maintain this innovation lead. All
right. If my memory is correct, you have the $52 billion or so in the Senate bill, your bipartisan bill, that's also present in the House bill, the $52 billion. So if you just carve that out, we'd be done with that part and you could fight about the rest.
Listen, that is Plan B. There's a lot of other good innovation ideas. There's also a tax credit program in both of these pieces of legislation. But if we can't get just the support for semiconductors, that is the key, most important part of that bill. And we've got to get it done. And the clock is ticking because this is a worldwide competition, not just U.S.-China. It's a worldwide competition. And American companies and, frankly, international companies are going to decide to build elsewhere, as Intel has, if we don't get our act together.
All right, you said that's national security. So that's all, and obviously our iPhones and everything else that we like for convenience, but we also use for security purposes. Taiwan's building a factory in Arizona. It's going to take when to get it completed?
It will be years because these factories literally are between $12 and $15 billion apiece. So there'll be some governmental support. Obviously, the companies have to put up a lot as well, and it takes a couple years, even once you operate, to break even. So these are some of the largest investment decisions a company needs to make, or for that matter, if we're talking about federal government support. And the reason, if we don't pass this legislation, we will never build another one of these factories, I think, in our country. Not because the American companies, Intel, I think, will continue with Ohio or TSMC in Arizona, but because it's not just the Chinese putting forward subsidies, but literally every other country in the world to try to attract these ventures, which are thousands and thousands of good paying jobs, each one of them, they'll go elsewhere.
All right, what happens if China disrupts the Taiwan in terms of the microchip production? I mean, let's say that they do like Putin did in Ukraine. What happens then to us?
We'd be up the creek. If we don't, and there's clearly, as we've seen Putin move aggressively against Ukraine, we know that President Xi of China has repeatedly said that he wants, during his tenure, to try to reunify Taiwan. Taiwan obviously is a critical technology leader, not only in semiconductors, but also a country that we have sold an enormous amount of military aid to. But the idea that if that was suddenly taken off the board, it would have a hugely disruptive effect.
Disruptive, or, I mean, is there any place else we can go for these in the short term?
Not in the next couple of years, as we have to build out this additional capacity on the cutting edge chips. These are based on the size of the chip, nanometer size. When you get down to the really, really small ones, Taiwan is where the cutting edge ones are being produced. Although you are seeing companies like Intel, Micron, others that are moving, American companies. Micron's more in the memory than the cutting edge. But there will be other Western competitors, but it'll take some time to get there.
And we hear a lot of news about President Xi and saber rattling with Taiwan. Do you anticipate that President Xi or that they are going to move into Taiwan? Is that something you anticipate?
As chairman of the Intelligence Committee, I'm not going to.
Okay. You can't answer that.
But I will say this. You just need to see what President Xi has said. You need to look at how aggressive China is in the South China Sea. You have to look at the fact that China is starting to build military bases. One in Djibouti in the Horn of Africa.
One in Cambodia.
That was just recently announced in Cambodia. China has very aggressive ambitions, particularly the Communist Party, led by President Xi. And I think we need to realize this is a technology, this is not only a military competition with China, it is not only an economic competition, but it is a technology competition. And quite honestly, even when Russia was the Soviet Union, it was really never a full-on economic and technology competitor. Our technology was better, our economy was much bigger. China's economy is rapidly approaching the size of ours, and in technology domains, semiconductors, I was in the telecom business, 5G, the company Huawei, which China backs, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. China's making the kind of investments that we used to make in terms of size and scope.
How does our Navy compare with China? I see rumors that by 2030, the Chinese are going to have many more battleships than we are. We'll read in the newspaper that they're building this secret naval base that Cambodia has denied. You see their Belt and Road Initiative where they're building ports and shipyards all over. So how do we compare militarily?
On military, I think our ships are still better. They've got much more technological capabilities. But one of the things as we think about the military domain, if we ever got into an actual conflict with China, we might not ever even get to the point of ships engaging with the PLA, the Chinese, the CCP's Army and Navy. We might actually have satellite conflict. We might have cyber at a level that we've talked about in terms of Russia, but we've not really seen yet. So China's ability and our ability to go toe-to-toe, I think we will still best them in a military conflict. But in terms of some of these technology domains that are frankly more some of them on the covert side, cyber, satellite, and others, they're a worthy adversary. And we have to be ready. That's one of the reasons why we also have to continue to build up our alliances with nations around Asia, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, countries that are very leery about Chinese expansionism.